to the fair with Esme.
All right, well, thank you, Rachel. And as promised, we are very lucky on this very busy news day to have Minnesota's senior senator, U.S. Senator Amy Klobuchar. Senator Klobuchar, thank you so much for coming. A great welcome, Senator Klobuchar.
Well, thank you, Esme. It's just great to be on. What a crowd. What a beautiful day at the fair.
Absolutely. Well, Senator, obviously very serious news from overnight with North Korea detonating that nuclear bomb. Your thoughts about that?
Well, first of all, this is not something to be at all taken lightly. This guy's a madman, Kim Jong-un. He's someone that just has now detonated a nuclear bomb that is has 7 times the amount of nuclear material than we saw in Hiroshima. He literally has killed his uncle. He has killed his half-brother. And that is why our United States of America diplomatic corps and everyone must be on alert. And I think the other thing we have to remember, there's some people that have talked about preemptively going in there with a military strike. Most people believe he would then retaliate against South Korea, could kill 10 million people if he did that easily. And so that's why so many of us are still focused, as is the Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, on trying to keep the diplomatic channels open, particularly working with China. 90% of the trade from North Korea goes through China. So China is a major player here economically that is in a unique position to negotiate something.
All right, let's talk, though, about the president's rhetoric. We heard that sound from earlier last month. Fire and fury if there was any kind of provocative act by North Korea. If this isn't provocative, I don't know what is. This morning on Twitter, the president going on a number of tweets saying they only understand one thing. What about that rhetoric?
Well, he has been employing this rhetoric for quite a while, and I think the people in his administration seem to be taking a different tact, his military people taking this very seriously, as we do. But the question is, does this create any kind of help in getting them to stop? And it doesn't appear to be doing that. You know, sometimes you think you have a good guy, bad guy, and it could be making it worse. I can't really assess that yet until I get a briefing, but I am concerned that it just gets the guy going. President Obama, while he did not solve this problem, took a different tact in terms of ignoring a lot of what he did. But we continue to see this military buildup. And to me, it means there must be some way with our allies that we work out some kind of negotiated solution here. Because you can't completely ignore it and put your head in the sand when this guy is escalating by the month. But I am not certain at all that these kinds of threats that then in the past when he said fire and fury that he didn't meet is what's going to help here.
All right, and just quickly, one more question on North Korea. The president on Twitter scolding both China and South Korea. There's a possibility that the U.S., the president may pull us out of a trade agreement with South Korea. Is that the right response?
I don't think so, because I think that we must stick with our allies here. South Korea is the most vulnerable of any country. They've been living with this threat of this madman right across their border. And while we may have differences with them, I think the last thing we want to do is send the message to the rest of the world that we're abandoning an economic relation with one of our key allies, South Korea.
All right. You just saw there, when it comes to Hurricane Harvey, the president asking for a multi-billion-dollar aid package. This is really a departure from some Republican positions after the aftermath of Sandy, including Senator Ted Cruz, who was very critical of that relief package. The president just saying a few weeks ago he wanted to build a wall or he'd shut down the government. How much of a game changer is this tragedy?
A major one, and first of all, of course, our thoughts and prayers are with the people of Texas. I'm so proud that the Minnesota National Guard is now going down there to help with 2 Chinook helicopters and some personnel, and I'm sure there'll be more on the way. And we saw acts of incredible heroism down there. That aside, we know this is going to be a major effort from the federal government, just like it was in Fargo and Moorhead, just like it was in Grand Forks, East Grand Forks, or with Hurricane Sandy out on the East Coast. When something happens to Americans, the whole country steps in and helps. It is true that some people like Senator Cruz of Texas did not help with some of these other disasters, particularly Hurricane Sandy, which Governor Christie has pointed out many times. But the point is, we can't use that as a reason to say to the Texas people, oh, we don't stand with you. I think politically what's interesting is clearly people like Senator Cruz that brought us to the shutdown last time. I don't think you're going to see them doing that this time because they're going to be trying to work with their colleagues to get funding to help their people recover. So my guess is what you'll see here is some, I hope, some constructive work going on the debt ceiling, which if we don't take care of that by the end of September, we go into a tailspin with the economy and default on our debts. I think we can handle that. Administration wants to do that. I think you'll see initial funding, which the president has asked for Hurricane Harvey. And then I also think you'll see some kind of resolution on the budget, at least continuing it into the next time. This would be the worst thing right now, with North Korea rattling its swords, with a major disaster in our own country, to have Congress do something that would be dysfunctional. And mostly I'd say to the White House, bring down the drama and actually get to work, because we have major challenges ahead.
All right. Senator Klobuchar, that certainly got a round of applause. Senator Klobuchar has been kind enough to agree to wait with us through the commercial break, and we'll have more of our live interview with Senator Klobuchar live from the Minnesota State Fair after this.